morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever the case may be, wherever you're watching this RedFellas on a Sunday night stream from. Let us know. We always like to know where you're watching it from, what continent, what country, what's the time, what's the weather. Let us know because that's what it's about. It's good to know who you're talking to and how they're feeling and all that kind of good stuff, especially when it's an international week and there's not much real football to talk about. I guess Conroy's pretty happy. I guess Jamie, did USA play? I'll ask you, and I think Steve doesn't give a shit. But I guess I will ask you guys. But first and foremost, thank you very much for tuning in. Hope you have liked the stream on your way in. Hope you are all safe, keeping well. And yeah, welcome to the RedFellas on a Sunday night. Your favorite LFC show. I know that. It is your favorite. I know it is. Don't lie. By the way, congratulations to me for my new camera. Steve actually said I'm looking. What was the word you used, Steve? Please, can you remind everyone what's that word you used?
Marvelous. But no. Beyond that, you look about 10 years younger, mate. You look absolutely cool.
See, oh, cool. Steve's changed it now, people. I think the word, and Conroy and Jamie may back me up. I think he said fly, looking fly, Grizz.
Yeah, that's it. You're right. You do look fly, mate. Absolutely. Now we can see the caps and all that in proper true colour, mate. Works a treat.
Looking fly. What a start to my night. I'm telling you, I'm over the moon with fly. But Conroy, how are you?
Yeah, no, good, Grizz. Scotland won yesterday. A bit, and let's be honest, Republic of Ireland's teams, it's not a good team at the moment. They just dropped the level with the players they've got. Troy Parrott plays a lot for them. They've got Obafemi. They've lost a lot of players the last couple of years. So Scotland should have won that game. They got well and truly beaten in the reverse fixture in the summer. So beating Ukraine during the week and then winning last night was it's really good for Steve Clarke, to be honest, because a few people are getting on his back. That's a few times now when there's the kind of shouts for him to get sacked, and then they go on a run, and obviously ahead to Tuesday, they play Ukraine and Krakow, and if they win that, if they draw or win that, they get promoted, or they win their league, the Nations League group. So that's pretty good, to be honest. It's Scotland's a weird one, Grizz, because sometimes we'll be flying, really good atmosphere, and then other times, get beat 3-1 Republic of Ireland, people are wanting them out of the job. But it was a good night, and to be fair, unlike certain managers, Clarke, to be fair to him, has a bit of adaptability. We've played a 4-2-3-1 the past two games, and if you put that in perspective, he's played like a back five for the majority of Scotland management career. So maybe can talk about Steve and yourself about certain managers who will maybe try different formations, but the same football seems to be happening. So I'll ask you about that, Grizz and Steve.
Yeah, I'm not sure we're going to want to talk about it as long as you want to talk about international football there. We asked for a basic, summary. You went way too long about
Scotland don't win very often.
That's what Conroy does. You're right. I'm joking. I'm taking the piss as I always do. Of course you do. Scotland, that's a massive win against another, British team. Pixelated Peter says, hello from Bath. Pick up the RedFellas. Hope that's Bath, the county,
in the Bath.
As opposed to in the Bath. Could be a bit dangerous, but we don't know. It could be. Technology's so past us, Steve, that it could be one of those laptops or whatever device is using that's fully waterproof. So maybe we're the old ones, right?
It's not beyond me, mate. It could be a floating Apple iPad or something, mate.
Okay, it's beyond me. Just beyond me. Ilyas is right. Smash the likes as you enter. Exactly. VVD clean sheet so far, and an hour so far, lads. Okay. Yeah, we don't want to talk about international football. Well, we can, I guess. Jamie, have you watched any international football? Are you a big USA fan? Have you guys been kicking ball?
Well, I mean, we missed the last World Cup, and so just qualifying for this one was
massive.
In this day and age, great for us, but at the same time, with the caliber of players that we have now playing in Europe and watching them whenever I do get the chance, you can see there is a huge dramatic improvement from what we had 20 years ago with Landon Donovan, Clint Dempsey, Brian McBride, Jay Demerit at Watford. So actually in my class, and I've mentioned before several times, I'm an English language learner teacher. So I teach new kids who come to the United States from other countries. we put on USA versus Japan on Friday because it was an 8:25 a.m. kickoff. So for our morning meeting where we ate breakfast, we watched like 20 minutes of the first half. And Japan went up 1-0 inside 20 or 30 minutes. And some of the kids are from Brazil, some Honduras, El Salvador. They ended up being like, when does Brazil play? We know Brazil plays later today. Let's get them on. These guys, there's nothing to watch here. So that's how my international game watch went this international break.
But now we just look forward to Liverpool Football Club. I guess, Steve, you're probably like me, but we'll find out. Have you watched any of the international stuff?
In all honesty, as long as Mr. Southgate presides over the England squad, I will abstain from watching football in favour of watching Coronation Street. Seriously, football teams represent the people that's in charge of them, and never more so true in Gareth South. Look at the players he's got at his disposal, and he chooses to play with 7 defensive players. You reap what you sow, and if you go negative, you get poor performances. And it's time for change. It really is. We need a manager who can get the best out of these young boys in the final third who can cause havoc, not center your team around a back 5. Italy, I saw your tweet, Grizz. Italy look really weak. We could hurt these. And we didn't hurt anybody, mate. So
famous last words.
Yeah. I stopped short of reminding you of that because I didn't.
I know. You would. I know you might have. Yeah.
But I do it on here with glee because I just think that England are absolutely dreadful, mate. They've got no idea and how you can play a man like Maguire who. What did he put the ball onto his own post crossbar and then smash it out for a corner with 10 minutes to go? I mean, what is that all about? Jamie's laughing, right, Jamie? But I saw a stat that USA gave the ball away 58 times from defensive positions in the first half against Japan. So it's not all great at both sides of the channel, is it, mate?
See, we play each other in the World Cup. That's the thing I wanted to get around to, where it's like that's going to be an interesting game for.
That's the stats. That's the stats we're going to be really interested in that game, but it should be fun. But look, with Southgate,
guys, little story. We filmed this week, and you guys have seen the pictures of the Liverpool player I met. But prior to that, we were setting up to do an advert for a show, and a guy shouts, "No way! I've seen you on YouTube. You're on Redmen, and you're on Grizz's RedFellas channel on a Sunday." And he asked for a photo. So if you're tuning in, I didn't catch your name. That was like the biggest moment for me so far in my podcasting career and social media influencer type thing. So fair play to you, mate. You were a gentleman, and I love the photograph.
Hopefully the gentleman is in the chat and reminds you so. That'd be wonderful. That'd be amazing. Channel member Dinesh says, "Evening, Grizz and everyone. Why Liverpool allowed Henderson to go to England camp when we have injuries midfield? I believe it's just for his sort of continuation of his recovery. It's a bit strange because he was never going to play. I don't understand it personally because maybe he was better. He would have been better off training with the trusted coaches and physios and doctors of the Liverpool Football Club, as opposed to going away in England. I mean, I don't know. Is there any other theory from you guys maybe that you want to throw in there?
I understand if we'd played Chelsea, he would have been in the matchday squad for the Chelsea game. That's how close he is.
No, that's fine. But
he wouldn't have played. He wouldn't have played. Yeah. He'd have been in the squad. So
yeah.
The other thing too, Grizz, is that says to me Southgate has him earmarked for a spot at the
that's absolutely, yeah. I get that from Southgate's point of view in terms of wanting his skipper. He's not the skipper, is he, actually? But one of the senior guys.
He is the skipper. Unofficially, Harry Kane has the armband, but everyone knows in that squad, Jordan Henderson is the leader of that team.
No, I think because it's the last games before the World Cup, you maybe just want some in and around. And to be fair, I wouldn't complain at that because as much as I agree with what you're saying, he still has been successful at tournaments. So he's probably, if he's done that in the past and he wants certain players around just to keep that culture, you talk about, obviously people, right now it's quite funny, but Milner, Henderson being like lieutenants in a dressing room, maybe something along those lines just to kind of keep the culture. But what I will say this though, like there's no point wasting tweeting about players to get in the squad now. Like don't waste your time. if this England squad is who he picks now, no one knew is going to come in. Like, so don't even waste a tweet on that, because it does. If you think a manager, I'd be very surprised, like James Maddison, for example. James Maddison's not going to go to the World Cup now. That's obvious, because you think Southgate, of all people, is going to take a chance and bring a player in who's never played in the last year or 6 months for the team. So there's no point even having a debate about that before World Cup. But
no, I'd guess there's probably maximum 2-3 spots that are up for grabs now. Maximum. I think majority of the squad will be built up. But you're right. You make a very good point in terms of ideally he'd want his major lieutenants stroke captains on the pitch, off the pitch, around the squad. Or maybe he was just tapping up Jude Bellingham.
Let's hope so.
Maybe.
But people, there's close to 150 of you now, and apparently there's not even 50 likes, which is embarrassing. Let's get up to 100 likes ASAP before we get into the real serious business of squad ranking, because these players do need to be ranked. It's just fun, isn't it? I'm gonna let you guys know, if you don't already. Where is it gone? Because I haven't got the banner up. This show, this channel, for the remainder of the season, as you guys know by now, is sponsored by yourfutcard.com. Your people that make FUT cards, that make wonderful football prints, that make and create your custom flags. These type of cards are available, different shapes, different sizes, different backgrounds, all different types of major prints of any sporting or footballing scenario that you may love. Such an easy website to use. Your FUT card, you select your design, so many varieties there. So here's some of the best sellers. You have custom flags you can build, have anything written on them you want. Freedom of speech and all that. You're allowed to have anything you want at your own peril and risk. Must add that. These are some of the sizes that are available. 3 major sizes, that are available. The smallest one to the medium one to the big one. As you guys know, I've got the biggest one. It's the way I roll, kind of thing. If you're still confused, there's a tab there that opens up a chat. Ask them anything you want. In fact, just chat to them if you feel like it sometimes. How you doing? Grizz's explanations are poor. We have no idea what he talks about. Can you explain what you really meant? And on top of everything else, guys, you go to that website, you order what you want, how you want, when you want, and all you got to do is type in RedFellas for a 15% discount as well. Amazing. You just can't go wrong, personally. Absolutely. So go check out yourfutcard.com. The only people when it comes to FUT cards, banners, and brilliant prints. Guys, apparently we've been told VVD has scored.
Yeah, just scored, yeah.
Amazing. More great news. Up the VVDs.
Jota last night as well. I think they're saying scores last night as well. So
exactly. Oh, I don't want to speak too much about Jota. I just want him to. I don't want to curse. Do you know what? It's one of those ones. You know what it's like. Guys, today we thought we go through the squad. We analyze each squad member that's played. We're not going to talk about players that have not donned the jersey. There's just no point. That haven't played more than, I'd say, 30 minutes. I'm not going to bother with. I'm just not going to bother with. Call it harsh. Call it what you want. I'll call it my choice. Conroy, if you'd like to bring up that screen, and I guess we're probably pretty much ready to go. Unless you tell me otherwise.
Yeah, just give me 2 seconds.
We can start talking about this. Conroy's not ready. 2 secs. Awful. But hey, we can just smile at the screen while Conroy brings it up. Everyone just do a cheesy smile and, hide the embarrassment. And I don't know. Conroy, this is where Omar's just overtaken him in terms of the behind the scenes work.
Not a question of production, Grizz. You really have, haven't you?
Yeah, you just can't get the right ones these days, man. It's so hard. There you go. There's the RedFellas.
Sorry, guys. I'd updated StreamYard, so it's usually just one click, but I had to go through a few boxes there. That's why it took a delay.
It's no problem. It's no problem. It's not a problem. But if you'd like to zoom in, please, sir, that would probably help. If you could like to zoom in a little bit. and then we can start cracking, I guess. I guess I'll come to Steve, and I'll start with Alisson. What kind of seasons has Alisson had so far, Steve? 7 game weeks in. Is it 7? Yeah, 7 league games, 2 Champions League games. Played every single game because there was a bit of an injury screw out in preseason, wasn't there? So we're blessed that he's played every single game, but I'll let you take the rest.
Sometimes you can only say a goalkeeper is as good as the protection in front of him, and we've spoken about an inability to compete in midfield, which has left the back four sort of overrun at times, and he's still been his doubtful self, pulling off one-on-one saves. Yeah, I don't think Alisson's had a bad season. I can't criticise him for anything. I can't think of a game where I could look at it and say, actually, he was at fault. Sometimes when you allow forwards to get one-on-one with your goalkeeper, they shouldn't have a chance. A good forward should score every single time. So I'm kind of... He's not been spectacularly brilliant, and he's been well above average. So he's a 7 or an 8 for me, and I probably would have gone 7.5. So I'll err on the side of an 8 because I can't fault what he's done. I think he's been exposed by the lack of midfield at times. Napoli game in particular, pulls off a brilliant save, only for the rebound to fall to Zielinski, who then finished it well. So I can't find room to criticise him. So I'm going to give him an 8.
Guys, before we go on, shall we agree not to give 0.5s, or shall we allow it? Do you think there will be a case for 0.5s in there as well? What do you think? Because that way we'll have no arguments going forward. Because you're saying between a 7 and an 8. So ideally you want to give him a 7.5. Shall we give him a 7.5 then maybe?
Yeah.
And put him in between?
Yeah, why not? Are
we okay with 0.5s, guys? Conroy, Jamie, are we okay with 0.5s, or are we just going with whole round numbers? Conroy, I'll do it. Leave that,
yeah,
Conroy.
Don't worry about all from my side. Yeah, no, it's fine, Grizz. It's in my side. It's zooming, but I think for some reason it's not.
Yeah, no, I'll do it. Don't worry, I'll do it. Sorry, I was just going to say, shall we do 0.5s in the ratings?
All good with 0.5s.
Yeah. So I think what we're starting off with Alisson then. Conroy, take it away. I'll do the rest. Don't worry about that. You tell me your thoughts on Alisson.
Alisson, for me, I think I would say my first thoughts are between a 7 and an 8 this season. I can't think off the top of my head. I did do a bit of preparation before it. Can't think of any glaring errors he's made, and he has pulled off quite a few good saves, and at times where he's been left quite exposed. So for me, I'd say between a 7 and an 8, probably a 7.5. Apart from him, I would say 7.5 for me, 7 or 7.5. I don't know if the guys, do you think he's done anything particularly wrong in the games?
I gave him a 7.5 as well, mate.
Yeah.
Jamie, are you going to solidify this opening rating or anything different?
No, Grizz, I echo completely. 7.5. I think a goalkeeper can only, be expected to do in some cases, as well as the defense and midfield in front of them, of what they let the goalkeeper deal with. And the only one that I can really remember where I had a question about it was the Zaha finish at Crystal Palace, where I was wondering, could you have come out sooner to close that off? And when you think about, there's only one time in a season where I think the goalkeeper could have done something different, as someone who's never played professional sports before, I think it's a pretty solid indicator that there have been no errors. And so with that being the case, I would go 7.5 as well. I could also agree with Steve that if we go in between 7.5 and 8, I don't think there's a reason why he couldn't be an 8, but 7.5 is fine for me.
There you go. There we have it. That was pretty straightforward. Everyone agreed, which I don't expect everyone to agree on the rest of them. I'm going to go in a wacky order, just like sort of how this is, as opposed to front to back and back to front. So I'm just going to go with Bobby Firmino, guys. Conroy, you can start this one. Bobby Firmino.
Tough one, this one. I think this one is more overall, because there's been some good moments, but there's also been some quite poor moments from Bobby. I've gave him, and it'd be interesting to hear everyone else's thoughts, I've gave him a 6. So the way I look at it is 5 is average and 6 is good. I was between a 5 and a 6, because I think you look at the Bournemouth game, you look at the Newcastle game, so I think he's done more than just to be average. He has contributed, I think just in certain other games, he's flatter to deceive. It's like we said before, Grizz. Bobby, you can tell 5 minutes into a game what type of game he's going to have. So I'd say, do you know what? Probably 6.5 for me, because he did. I just remembered there the goal, getting us back in the game against Newcastle, the hat-trick against Bournemouth. Sorry, not the hat-trick, the 2 goals and the 3 assists. But he was obviously very influential. So I'd say 6.5 for Bobby.
Jamie, I'm going to go to you next and remarks on Bobby's. What you had expectations wise, and sort of how are you feeling now about him?
Well, the one thing I want to address with all of us is, okay, I personally don't think 5 is average. I think in my opinion, I've never done one of these shows before, but with professional footballers, I feel like 7 should be the benchmark of decent. I don't think 5 should be the benchmark of decent, because I associate it with a test score. 5 out of 10 on a 10-question test is, that's bang average. That's just below less than half. And so for me,
no, that's what I meant, Jamie. Average, not decent, just average. So say someone is like not done anything good, but they've not been exploited in a game. I'd kind of say it's like they start at 5, if you know what I mean. Like,
okay, for sure. I just think that for us, in terms of if you're below a 7, you are not doing well.
Well, you're not going to like my ratings then.
Fair enough. And so for me, in terms of the impact that Bobby has had this season, right, with the Newcastle and Bournemouth performances where we don't have as many wins on the board as we should, but he was instrumental in some of the games that we did have success in. I think that I personally have to give credit to that. And so I know Bobby Firmino will never replicate the form that he did in 2017 and 2018. He's just not one of those guys who will be able to carry the best form of his career for 5 to 6, 7 years after that. And so I'm completely fine with the development that he's had as a player. And for me, I rank him based on that. And so with that being the case, I know he has not had performances that would lead Liverpool to be in a position that we want, which makes sense to me because we've invested in Darwin Nunez as another integral guy to go into that middle of the front 3 spot, along with Diogo Jota in the past 2 years. So there's clearly a succession plan for that spot. So with that being said, I would give him a 7.
Okay, so we have a 6 from Conroy and a 7 from Jamie.
Yeah, 6.5, guys.
Sorry, I beg your pardon, Conroy. 6.5 and 7, Steve.
I understand the rationale Jamie just came with, but 7 out of 10 for me is a performance. It's where you've turned up and contributed to the game and you performed well. I can't use the Bournemouth game as a barometer of anything or any player because it was such an anomaly. It was such a strange game and they were so devastatingly poor. It's hard to use that as a measurement for anything. 5 GA on the day, great, brilliant. That's 90 minutes in a season where you could say, we all sang the Bobby song, Si Senor. I need to see more from him. I've needed to see more from him for 18 months. We know that Bobby's career is in the sort of twilight in terms of being a Liverpool player, and he's not the future of the football club, and he's not the player he was. And I think Jamie referenced we're not going to see him as a 17, 18 player ever again. I've got Bobby as a 6 because I think, personally, I can't use the Bournemouth game to measure our players. And there have been other games he came on as a substitute against Everton and offered next to nothing. And that was a game when we needed the ability of a player like that. Not criticising him. He's been much, much better than he is now. But his career and his performances and his form have been in decline for a little bit of time. And again, that isn't criticism. That's a set of circumstances. And we've asked an awful lot of this guy in the last 4 or 5 years. And he's run his blood to water for the football club. And there's a bit of give and take in that. So for me, I would have him as a 6 because I can't use the Bournemouth game as a measurement for anything.
I'm going to weigh in, if you don't mind. And I'm going to say absolutely, Steve. He's in the Sadio Mane category in terms of has sweated blood and water for us. An absolute legend for Liverpool Football Club. His time here has been amazing, and he's overseen or been part of the sort of the team and squad that's enabled us to give us so much glory and happiness. Saying all that, that's the respect that he's worth and should get. I think away from the Bournemouth game, he's been awful. I put into consideration the Napoli game. I put in consideration the Fulham game. Everything that you expect Bobby to do, he wasn't even doing them. The goals and assists are always a bonus with Bobby. Not always, but it's kind of a bonus. But at the end of the day, output is output. He has got us. Did you say he's got 5 or 6 goals and assists in all the 6 GA in 7 games?
Yeah.
So just on the basis of that, you'd think, whoa, okay, what the hell is Grizz on about? But that Bournemouth was, by everyone says, an absolute anomaly. I see it as a 6, guys, as maximum. So I don't know how we're working this out. So we've got 2 6s.
Yeah, 6.5 and a 7.
1 6.5 and a 7. I guess the 6 wins in this case then, because it's the majority, isn't it?
I hear what you're saying. I'm quite happy for it to be a 6 from my vote as well, because I think I wasn't much in it from 6 to 6.5 for me.
And this is a player who's going through unexpected decline in his form and decline in his performances given his age and what we've asked of him. So I'm not sitting here criticising him because I'm Bobby's biggest fan, but he's not the player he was, and that's understandable given the circumstances and how long he's been at the club.
Yeah, I pretty much echo that, but as I said, I needed to put some respect and credit on his name because he's an absolute legend. And I don't think he would. And I think he was starting off the season even in his own head, 5th choice. Like he was a 5th choice. Jota and Nunez being injured meant he had to start. But maybe we're expecting too much of him, and maybe it's the coach's situation that need to analyze that playing that system with Bobby in there doesn't work now. That system was made for Bobby. This new way of possibly formation-wise doesn't suit Bobby, but we'll get into that on another show. We're going for Harvey Elliott. I believe Jamie is first this time.
Okay, so back to what I was talking about with Bobby, I feel like it's incredibly important to provide context around the player, who they are, at what point they are in their Liverpool career. And so for Harvey Elliott, he's come back from an incredibly difficult situation to be someone who is looked at as a promising prospect, thrown right into the starting 11 last year, having seemingly great positive impact and success. And then he's out with the 4th or 5th game of the year with a horrid tackle from the gentleman from Leeds. And then he comes back in late February or early March, if I remember correctly. And then he could never get into the starting 11 again on a consistent basis due to us being in a title challenge and a Champions League final stretch. And then he comes out this year. And one of the things I like to say is, someone else's misfortune could potentially be your opportunity. And he's given this chance to start in the middle of the park on the right side in front of Fabinho in the 3. And he's not had the easiest time of it. Liverpool have obviously not had the easiest time of it. I think if any Liverpool fan were to go back in time and then come forward to this point and say that they're happy with this position that they're in, nobody would say that. And so for him, he's had so much responsibility at such a young age without a continuation of progress, where he's never really gotten to have the learning phase of his professional career at Liverpool in the Premier League. But with that being said, for how young he is and how he's been one of the stalwarts in the team, I think between 6.5 and 7 is a decent mark for him at this point?
Conroy.
For me, guys, actually, I hear what Jamie's saying there. For me, I think, again, I've kind of taken each game and overall opinion, summary of the player. I think he's had a few good games this year, and he's played well. I think United away, we were awful. He did actually, have his head held. I'm not saying it was amazing, but, he did keep going. But when everyone else stopped, I've got a bit of time for that. Him and Carvalho actually looked like they were still trying to get us back in that game. I think Bournemouth obviously scores in that game. I think he's had impressive moments in certain games as well. But to be fair, I think we've got to judge it as a professional player. And I know he's young, but I take that into consideration for how we speak. But what I would say is, for me, 6.5. I'll go for 6.5 for me. 6.5.
Steve.
Got to be honest with you, a little bit surprised at the two scores, which I think if we've just given Bobby a 6, is he 0.5 better than Bobby's performances? He's been the bright spark and in many an average performance in terms of wanting the ball, always looking forward, showing for the ball. When he loses the ball, he works hard to win it back. I kind of would give him at the very least a 7, maybe even as much as a 7.5, because in a midfield that's been bereft of anything in certain games, he's been the guy that I've looked at and thought that's the catalyst for anything that's been good in the midfield. And I don't buy into the responsible for the run off him against Napoli. He doesn't play in the same position as Jordan Henderson. He plays higher up the pitch, so his starting position is different. So I don't hold him responsible like some fans do for one of the goals we conceded. So I'm gonna score him. I'm gonna score him 7, and it would be higher, but he has had 1 or 2 games where the impact ran out a little bit, and that's understandable because he's probably played more games this season than he should have done in the first 7 games because of squad availability and who was there. But I've got to be honest, guys, I think scoring him a 6 or 6.5 is very low for what's arguably been the pick of the midfield.
I'm conflicted about Harvey Elliott as well. I think, like we've discussed on many a show, in terms of this new position yet again for him. Okay, he played there last season, but we didn't get to see it much because after the first 4 games. But it is a slightly different position he's been asked to play. Again, no fault of his. I believe he started every single game, hasn't he, guys? Also, even in Europe, both Champions League games, he started every single game, and that is such an ask for a kid. And he is a kid. Such a hectic start to the season, shortened pre-season, starting every game, scratch midfield near enough every time he's played. I'm of the opinion he's been probably our best midfielder, and obviously some may argue with a certain Spanish Brazilian, but obviously he's not played as many as Harvey Elliott. He's only been played in 2 games. But with Harvey Elliott, yeah, I'm more inclined to give him 7. I don't know how that weighs up with everyone else though. Was it 2 7s and a 2 6.5? So was it?
Yeah, no, I give a 6.5, and Jamie gave a 6, so it'd be 7 then, won't it? Because it's 2 7s.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the way it's worked out,
Yes,
guys. Yeah, that's the way it's worked.
That's
so
why you have a discussion about it. That's why.
Yeah, exactly.
At least we've not got a tie. That's the.
Yeah, exactly. We'll go to the vote with a tie. Just a very quick super chat before we continue, guys. I'm so sorry. Sharif, appreciate the support, my friend. He goes, Grizz, have we ever been linked to Marcus Llorente? In my opinion, the perfect Klopp midfielder, can play anywhere in midfield and also can cover right back if need be. He is tied up until 2026 and won't be cheap. Yeah, I haven't heard his name being linked with us. I agree he'd be an amazing player for us. I think he's got the profile and the capabilities and definitely the skill to play in a Liverpool team, very much like Lima was said to be, and very much like Valverde from Real Madrid, but pretty much like Valverde, very unlikely that we'd be able to prize him away from Spain. Yeah, Crown comes to mind. But guys, we go on to the next player, and we have Mr. Darwin Nunez. That's the way it's come out. It's scrambled. I didn't mean to put it into this order, and I believe it's Conroy first this time round.
Yeah.
Sorry for the simple one, Conroy. So go first.
Yeah. Right. For me, are we including the Community Shield? I know we probably would. I've not really spoken.
Shall we? I don't know. Do we?
Yeah, we should. Yeah, we should.
Okay. Yeah, we should.
It was a competitive game given the opposition, wasn't it? So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's funny you said that actually then, because that's just funny. That's funny. Just because it's answered something later on I can use, but I'm not going to use that. For me, I'm sorry, headbutting a player is just, at the time I said, that's just not on anyway. So that straight away puts your mark down. And then the performances since being back. So again, you've got to look at overall. I'm not having any of this, throw Darwin out stuff. That's just, and we're getting a bit obsessed now from both sides. It's like when he miscues a cross, rival fans retweet it. But then when he has a great shot that's saved, we're retweeting it. I think they're both a bit crazy, by the way, right? If it doesn't go in, I don't want to see highlights of a striker shooting for 30 yards to get saved. I mean, they're both a bit extreme, if you ask me. But
Twitter, Conrad, I keep telling you about Twitter.
I thought he'd scored the way they were reacting. No, the keeper saved it. Is this where we are right now? That's a bit mental in itself. But I'm going to say, because we're counting Community Shield, and I thought it was really good when he came on in that game, scores against Fulham, I'm going to go for a 6, actually. I'm going for a 6, because was thinking a 5 since he's been back, but he scored against Fulham, scored against City. He was good in those games, but I'd say a 6. I mean, for the headbutt and the performances since then, he's been good spells in some of those games, but it's still a small sample size, but for me, it's a 6.
Steve goes next.
I'd be inclined to agree with the 6. The reason why I'd give him a 6 is what we're seeing at the moment is the physical attributes of the player. So let's take for Everton, for instance, where I identified as James Tarkowski would be the man that he would centre his game around, and he would play against him directly. So he used his physical attributes to get across him, most notably for the shot that Pickford tips onto the crossbar. However, what we haven't seen, and I'm sure it's yet to come, and it's not necessarily his fault because we've been disjointed, is we're not seeing any IQ, any footballing IQ from the player. We're just purely seeing physicality. So I need to see more of that. I'm sure there's more of that to come. You can't turn into the player that played at Anfield and overnight become a player that doesn't have all of those traits. But I've said on numerous shows, including ours, we're still learning about him and he's still learning about us, and we're doing it on the job, which makes it really, really difficult. I can see some raw ability. I need to see a little bit more footballing brain. So 6 would work for me also.
I think I shouldn't go last in every round, because then it will look like I'm having the last say, and I don't want to have the last say. It's a consensus. I'm slightly surprised with the high ratings of Conroy and Steve. I think Charity Shield. Yeah, I'm willing to give him positive vibes for that.
Yeah, wins a penalty, scores a goal in that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
As a bit of weight. If
absolutely, absolutely. But the actions started the Premier League, the bread and butter. Fulham, he makes a massive impact, and then since then, for me, he hasn't.
Since the head,
because of his because of the disciplinary issue. Yeah, 5 for me, lads, and that's the highest I can give him. I absolutely see the potential, and I see where we're going with him. I'm not as blinded as that to many are. I do see a vision with him, but right now I have to assess it on what I've seen. I'm not gonna give him an assessment. Maybe I should have made it clear to everyone. We're assessing from what we've seen, not what we think will happen. So I'm gonna give him a 5 personally. So we've got 2 6s and a 5. Jamie.
Yeah, just to backpack off of those points, I think a 6 for me is what will be the mark for Darwin Nunez, because I can't lie. It would be just those 2 games, the City and the Fulham, but the confidence of going in for the back heel flick, having it saved by the goalkeeper at Fulham, and then going in for the same back heel flick and scoring. That confidence to me is a player who will develop and have success. And I know we're not rating on what we think will happen, but for Darwin, he has been involved in Premier League goals, and he has looked like a player who could have an impact for this team, simply based on the fact that he has had a huge volume of shot production in the limited amount of time that he's been on the field, where when I think about Liverpool of last year going up against low blocks and the years prior where we would struggle to create chances, this guy, when he's on the field, he always seems to be involved in the offense somehow. And so I'll give him a 6.
6 it is then. There you go.
I feel
6,
like this
he
might
gets
be
a
at the
6.
end. This might cause an issue because we might have other players in the same that we might. So
I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. This is the first one that I totally disagree with. But this is the game. And it is a game, people. These are not the official ratings that we have to go by. Many in the chat are shocked with the 6.
I can't score. It's 259 minutes, boys. Less than 3 games on the football pitch. I would find it very, very difficult to mark him down for that reason.
But that's the exact reason why I struggle to mark him high, because it's his fault. Because he's the reason why he's only played 250 minutes. You see, but we may change as we go forward. Who's next? Oh, it's Luis Diaz. I believe it's me. Okay, Luis Diaz, by far the most impressive attacker stroke player, has individual moments of brilliance, has had individual moments of brilliance, has struggled to, again, pretty much the rest of the team, put many signs of cohesive movement together with teammates, but as an individual has done his fair share. I think without doubt, he's been our most effective attacker, and of course, scored some wonderful individual goals. For me, only because he's amazing, he must do better. But that's just me. I'm still willing to give him 7.5 on a par with Alisson. Probably, I might as well say it, probably the highest scorer for me this season. I don't know if that's a giveaway for the rest of the scores, but for me, I'm willing to give him 7.5, possibly at 8, but I'll go with 7.5 because I think his final pass and stroke shot could be better at times. That's just me, Conroy.
No, absolutely. I think you're spot on. I agree. 7.5. I think 8's far too high because at times it is more just been him doing it himself, which is fine, by the way, that the team has not been great, but there is moments where, like, he takes the ball so deep, and it does sometimes. I would say there's some cohesion. If it's Robertson, if it's Tsimikas, you've seen it with both fullbacks. It's not quite there at times with the movement, and I think that'll improve. But I think that's the only reason I'd say instead of 8 is a 7.5 for me, just because yes, he's been brilliant. He's dragged us up at times. I would add though, see when you're 3-0 down, you start to play then. I don't think that looks amazing. It's when you Crystal Palace 10 men. That's amazing to me. But when the game's gone, I mean, there's a credit in that, but I think let's not go over the top. But I think, he has been a bright spark and up there with Alisson for me, so 7.5.
Steve, 2 7.5s.
3 7.5s. This is a guy that I tend to disagree a little bit with what Conroy said. I think there's a tactical change which allowed him to get involved in the game when we were losing it and improved his performance. He actually has responded to being played through the middle on a couple of occasions. So there's a little bit of tactical flexibility in him. But he's always the guy that shows for the ball. He's always the guy that wants the ball. He's always the guy full of the fight. Scored a couple of really good goals. Been unlucky in the derby coming off the post with what is now a trademark move. There is more to come from him in terms of his link-up play with other players in the squad. I get that. We kind of have forgotten that he's only been in the club for 6 months in football in terms because Nunez has arrived and taken the new boy shine away from Diaz, but he's still adjusting. But I just like the street fighter attitude and the fact that he's prepared to, against Ajax, his running was unbelievable. He was an outball every single time for quick goal kicks from Alisson, and I think he's been, by some distance, the bright spark in the team this season.
Jamie, sir.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with an 8 here because in the point that we're at in Liverpool's season, I think it's clear we all would wish that we could rate our players higher, but we simply can't because of the results and the performances that we've given so far up to this point. But Luis Diaz is a guy who looks arsed about Liverpool Football Club winning matches, and you can see it in the way that he runs with authority and almost a petulance of when he doesn't have the ball, of he feels offended when someone takes the ball off of him. And that's something for me that when you're winning or when you're losing, if you still maintain that attitude, that's something of great respect for me. And I feel like in a quarter of a season where Liverpool have not performed well, Luis Diaz should be towards the upper echelon of performers because of his work ethic. So that's why it's 8 for me.
I believe that makes him a 7.5. Is that right, guys? That is right, isn't it?
7.5, yeah.
Joe Gomez, guys, just a polite reminder to the panel. We are 45 minutes in and we're only 5 players in, so crack on.
Okay.
Who's next?
I think Jamie might
no,
be first.
Steve. Is it Steve or Jamie? One of them
It's
two.
me, mate.
Steve, mate. Go on.
Conroy took that Nunez one from when I so it doesn't matter, but
yeah, it doesn't matter. Joe Gomez.
I'll just get to the score. I'm going to give Joe Gomez a 6.5 purely because there are times when the concentration issues still exist. It's nice to see him back in the team. It's going to take him a while to get back to where he got to, and it's still going to take him a while to get back to where he got to. But I can't forget the errors in the Napoli game. No wonder he didn't come out in the second half. I don't think he wanted to come out in the second half. He still needs 6 or 7 games more consistently in the side to get to where he needs to get to. And of the centre halves available, we've got 3 who are considerably more reliable and I think are in front of him. So his 4th choice. And the Napoli game was horrendous.
Guys, there's over 210 of you guys in here. Thank you very much for the support. We do appreciate and love you all. Please, if you could hit that like button, that would be amazing on top. A 6.5 from Steve. Who's Jamie? Go for it.
I
didn't want to give my facial expression or any kind of expression.
What do you mean, Grizz?
What do you mean? I know. I don't want to give anything away.
I personally can't go higher than a 5.5. I mean, I know the injuries that Joe Gomez has had in his career, and so that's delayed his development. But as a senior pro at this point, which I think we can all call him, the performances have not been confidence-inducing. And when you're a center back, that's one of the things that I look at of when I'm watching you. Do you fill me with confidence? And recently, he has not done that. And, you know, the results, they paint a picture in the games that he's played in. So 5.5 for me.
I'll go next. Yeah. The thing is, it's a weird one. It's a very, very awkward one again, because Joe Gomez, I absolutely love Joe Gomez. Like, obviously as a player, but as a guy, not that I know him personally, but I know people that do know him personally, and they speak so highly of him. He's such a cool, down-to-earth guy, and everything that he's been through is just horrendous in terms of injuries. I would have had him nailed for a 6, minimum 6 before the Napoli game, because I actually thought he was one of the better players. I know some people disagreed, but you know, each to their own. I think the Napoli one was such a disaster that I'm going to downgrade him to a 5 personally. So I'm going to give Joe Gomez a 5. It's a very awkward one because I genuinely think he was good before then. Conroy?
No, I agree. The Napoli game, yeah, I do think it is a fair point to say he wasn't like that was the one game that pushed it down, because I don't think he was bad before it. I do think there's people saying he was in the comments, and that's fair enough, but I don't remember us criticising Joe Gomez after the games leading up to that too heavily. But as I say, I think it's like he wasn't like at a 9 until the Napoli game. Do you know what I mean? There's still moments, so I'd say 5. I also, to be honest, now I'm thinking about it, I'd put Darwin down to 5 as well. So I don't know if that changes things, makes him a 5.5. But we can look at that at the end.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, absolutely. What's been the consensus then? 6.5 was Steve. Me and Jamie were 5. No, Jamie was 5.5.
And I was 5 with you, Grizz.
So we get 5 for then Joe Gomez. Okay, next up is Andrew Robertson. Jamie.
I'll start now.
It's tough because he's played a lot of football in the past year and a half, and so we know the standard that he can produce. And I just feel like he hasn't been hitting that. I feel like one of the best indicators to me sometimes of when the fullbacks are feeling themselves is the corner kicks and the confidence that they have, depending on how good of a ball they can give, and that can sometimes gauge a little bit of where their fitness levels are as well. Because when you get to be super dogged out, your corners they'll just lack because you're losing focus. And I feel like that's been something with Robbo that I haven't seen, and with Tsimikas, his foil. So I'd give him a 6.5.
Who does that go to? Does it go to me or Conroy? Shall I go?
You just go, Grizz. It's fine.
Okay. Straight 4 for me. Not being himself, below average. One of the more senior players in the team. Yeah, straight 4. I'm not going to waste too much time on Robertson. 4. Conroy.
My next, I would say I tend to agree. I'd be between 4 and 5. The only reason I'd say maybe a little bit higher, and it's not a case of Conroy being biased, I'd say he has had games where he's not necessarily done anything wrong, but he's not really been at it, and he has had a few assists. But I say I'm not going to argue with that. I think it's very easy for me to come and be like, try and push the mark up, but I would say between a 4 and a 5. I'll put a 4.5. I'll say a 4.5 because he has numbers, he got a few assists. And not every game he's been terrible, but I'm not going to lose sleep over that. So 4.5 for me.
4.5, 6.5, that's 10. I said 4, 14. He averages whatever we work out in a minute. Let's see what Steve ends up with, and we can have a better understanding.
I can't rate him 1.5 worse than Bobby or a 1.5 worse than Nunez. I can't do that. So maybe you have to look at those two guys' results.
Agreed.
I couldn't give him a 4.5. I think he's a bit better than that. I'd set on a 5.5. He's a long way away from where he should be. This is a guy that was giving you 8.5 all season, every season for 4 years, and he's not been the player he has been. And I would give him a 5.5.
Yeah, I'd probably keep him at a 5. I haven't said that, guys. Probably a 5 from me then, to be fair.
Does that average out to what does that average out then, guys? Help me here. Anyone with a great command of maths?
No, you gave 4. I gave 5.5. Conroy gave 5. That's 9.5. That's 13.5. What did you give him, Jamie?
6.5.
So that's 20. So between 4, you got a 5.
Yeah,
just 5.
Amazing, Steve.
That was impressive, Steve. That was impressive.
Yeah, I mean, we are thinking about this because I gave him a 5. You guys upped it to a 6. I have to agree with you guys. So, Tsimikas.
Who's first?
Jamie, I think. No? Is it Jamie? Yeah, Jamie.
I mean, he's looked a breath of fresh air when he's come on, and I feel like he gave the cross for Matip at Ajax, didn't he?
Yep, 2 assists.
2 assists. Okay. I mean, I personally think that Costas and Robbo, the past 6 months of playing football, have been very, very close. And I think that's been great for the success of them both. So I'd have to give him a half point better than I've given Robbo. So I'd give Costas a 7.
Conroy.
Yeah, obviously I'm going to say a 7 or 7.5 as well. You know what? I'm going to say 7, and this is the reason. I think it's defensively been very impressive. He's improved a lot there, and I think he's had his moments attacking wise. I do think sometimes though, it's like Costas last year. I thought his delivery was on point. I don't think it has been every game this season, and I think that's a fair comment. I think he's played well, by the way. It's not a Andy Robertson agenda. I just think there's certain games where, like, I know he's got a wand of a left foot, and I think he showed that more last season a bit more. But having said that, I still think he's played very well. I'd say 7, but I wouldn't be against 7.5. I just, in my ratings, my highest are like 7.5. So I think I've just got one or two a little bit higher. But as I say, good, solid, good. Definitely defensively, he's improved a lot. I think the Everton game, he was up for the battle as well, showed a lot in that. So I'll say 7 now, but I say nothing wrong if going up to 7.5 if need be.
Steve, we're floating around 7.5 so far, with me and you to go.
7 for me. He just is consistent, isn't he? Without being spectacular, and doesn't have bad games. Came on a couple of assists in that mad game against Bournemouth as well. Has probably been in better form so far this season than Robertson. That will change. Robertson will come back, but I'm just going to give him a 7, mate. I just think you can count on him. He's turned up in every game. He hasn't been a disaster in any game at all. So and he's been better than average.
I believe he deserves a run in the team for now. And so therefore I'll give him a 7. I think he's been a bright spark. I think he's waited for his chance. He's been patient. And I think he's played very well every time I've seen him play for Liverpool. 7s, I agree with 7. So that's a foregone conclusion for all of us. Who's next? Mohamed Salah is next. And who's first? Do we know?
I think it's me now, guys. I think I'm first now.
Go on, sir.
This is a hard one, actually. I don't want to go first in this one. Grizz, do you want to go first in this one?
No.
I will.
Right, you go first, Steve, in this one, because this one, my head scrambled a bit when I was writing this earlier with Salah. So you go first, Steve.
So Mo Salah's created the most opportunities of any forward in top 5 until very recently in the top 5 leagues in Europe. So don't forget that. He's not scoring the goals that we expect. He still have an impact in the side. He's still the problem is he's been forced a little bit wider by Nunez's introduction. I'm going to give Mo Salah a 7. I don't think he's at the level that he's been used to being at. In terms of his goal return, we need to see an improvement in that, and hopefully that comes. But he's still a massive contributor, and if he'd scored a couple more goals, it might have been a 7.5. But I'm not prepared to sort of go any lower than a 7 with him because his chance creation's been very, very high.
Conroy, or do you want me to go next?
No, I'll go. I think for me, I'd say 6. I was thinking about 6.5, to be honest, just because when I look at that, I think Tsimikas and the players above it have been more on it. But then, as Steve's talking about the chances created, I'm just talking when I watch him, I think he's just had moments where he's not been at it. But I'll go with 6.5 and now. Could change my mind later, but for the moment, I'll say 6.5.
I'm going to go 6. I think his performances have been 5, but his output has meant, for me, he gets that 1. I don't think he's played like a leader. I don't think he's played anything remotely close to the levels that he can perform for us, especially now that he's got his contract. Everything should be settled from that aspect. Yeah, for me, no higher than 6, which makes me angry at the rating we've given Nunez and Bobby, but we may cross that when we get there. No higher than 6 for me, personally. Jamie's left, I think.
Yeah, so with the Ajax game and the finish that he had in that game, it gave me vibes of 1920 with the confidence that he had. And so having those memories in my mind, I have to bump him up from a 6 that I would have had pre that game to a 6.5 now with that finish. So 6.5 for me.
What's the scores, Mrs. Moores? What's how does
So
that
I think
work?
that's 2 6.5, Grizz. Steve was a 7, so I think it's a 6.5 for him then because you were a 6. So
6.5. There you go. Diogo Jota, how long has he played? How much has he played? Does he?
Played about 60 minutes against Ajax.
Oh, just over the threshold then. 30 minutes, I said the threshold. So I guess very quickly, I'll go first. Diogo Jota, 60 minutes, been already a bright spark for us. Love him. Hasn't scored, but got an assist. I'll give him a 6 just for Diogo Jota.
I agree.
Okay.
Don't need to dwell on this guy, do we?
Yep.
Really, you know.
Jamie and Evan, I beg your pardon. Conroy?
I'll give him a 7 based on the shot that he had when he got it at about 2-3 yards outside of the box. It looked real close. He looked confident. I'll give him a 7.
And Conroy?
Do you know what? I'm going to go for a 7 as well. I thought he came against Everton. He's not very good at right wing. Like, so I don't. That to me was not a smart. He can't really play there very well as of late. But I'd say I thought he was good against Ajax. I thought he looked quite effective, sharp. And to be honest, I know if I give a 7, it's a 6.5. So I think a 6.5 is fair for Jota. So I'll say 7.
So that gives him a 6.5. Thanks for working that already out for me. Amazing. Trent Alexander-Arnold, and I believe Conroy has to start now.
No, I think it's...
You didn't start last time. It was supposed to be you.
Oh, it's me. Oh, God. I don't know. Right, for me, it's between a 4 and a 5. See, I still think he's had games where he's created things, so I'm not going to put him below Robbo, because I think, like, even though Robbo's not made as many mistakes in games, Trent has had the opposite, where he's been more of an output, but then again, I'm going to say 5, right? I'm going to say 5. Prepared to change on that, and I know what he's thinking, but I'm more looking at this with the outlook at everything else, Grizz. 4 or 5. I'll go for 5 now, but I'm prepared to change.
I'll go next because Steve's camera's off at the moment, so I'll go next. I'm giving him a 3.5, and the 0.5 is because of his chances created, maybe, as you said.
Yeah, I'm going for a 4.5 actually, Grizz. Sorry, change that to 4.5. Yeah, because
4.5.
He never has it this low. I don't think he's got assists yet this season.
No,
is that right?
He's got a goal though. You see?
Oh yeah, against Bournemouth.
Cracking goal. So I'll give him a for that. Actually, I'll give him a 0.5. Yeah, I was going to give him a 3. I'm sorry, I think you guys are way too generous with these ratings, but hey, it's what everyone has to agree on it. 3.5 for me. Jamie?
Yeah, 4, because if I give the logic of Luis Diaz gets extra marks from me based on the effort that he's provided, and I can count on this hand several times that I've seen Trent Alexander-Arnold walking back when other teams have scored goals and professional matches, that's unacceptable. And so for his attitude for me in some of those situations, there's no way I can rate him above a 4.
Yeah, that's a good point as well.
Okay, Steve, I don't know if you want to know the rest of our ratings, but go for it.
Yeah, I did catch him.
Okay, cool.
I'd be giving him a 5, and I don't generally score players low anyway. That's kind of a glass half full kind of guy. But he's miles away from where he needs to be. Another one should be up in the 7s, 8s, 8.5s. But there's more to come from him. So I'm gonna 5 is a really poor score for me. That's where he's going.
Right, so we've got a 5, we've got a 4.5, we've got a 4, and got a 3.5. Steve, do your work.
8.5, 12, so 17. So that's 4.25.
Right,
so 4.
I'll give him a 4, yeah.
Goes to a 4, and I think that's very reasonable. I'm very happy with that. Actually, I couldn't have accepted him being above 4.
We can look at the end as well, Grizz. If we feel like other players should be,
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Fabio Carvalho, guys, very quickly, I guess. Steve.
Fabio Carvalho, difficult to say because of very limited game time. He's kind of in the same arena as Jota for me. Everything he's done with purpose. It's been bright. I don't count the Everton game against him because tactically, in the first 20 minutes, we got that wrong, and that's not his fault. I'm going to give him a 6. I'm doing it quickly because I'm conscious of the time, so he gets a 6 for me.
Jamie?
I agree with Steve in terms of being a young player. You can't expect the world, but at the same time, if you compare to Harvey Elliott is levels above right now, so a 6.
I gave him a 6.5. I think he's been wonderful every time he's.
Yeah, I'll give him a 7, Grizz. He's played he came on twice, scored the winner against Newcastle where no one else could turn that game. He plays against Everton for 45 minutes, okay, tactically, but then he comes in against Man United and puts senior players to shame. I give him a 7. I think he's not had a lot of time. Harvey Elliott's played every second this season, or a lot, and I feel like Carvalho showed a lot in a short sample size, so I'd give him a 7.
What's that work out?
So 7. I gave him a 6. What did you give him, Grizz?
I'm happy to give him a 7 as well.
So that's
6.5.
20. What did you give him, Jamie?
A 6, so he's a 6.5.
26. So that's a 6.5.
Okay.
He does deserve credit, I think.
I agree. But based on the minutes played, I guess it's difficult to put. Yeah, I get it. Virgil van Dijk, guys, who wants to go first? Anybody?
I will. I don't mind
going
first.
Go on.
Virgil is a 6.5 for me because he sets ridiculously high standards. The reason I can't give him anything above and beyond that is comes a time when you shepherd attackers away from the goal, and there comes a time when you commit and you win the ball. And I think he's become over-reliant on shepherding players away from the goal. So if that player can get a pass off and it goes to somebody else and they score, the shepherding looks like it hasn't worked. I want to see him winning more balls at the point where there's a physicality involved rather than clever IQ defending. There is a time to win the ball. And I think he's become really reliant on this ability or this perceived ability to shepherd players away from danger. There's been times this season that hasn't worked. So I'm going to give him a 6.5.
Do I go next or is it?
Yeah, you go, Grizz. You go for this one, Grizz.
Yeah, I think he's been atrocious barring Ajax. I think he's for a leader, for a captain, for the main man at the club. Knowing not Matip's not there, then he's lost Khanage. I think along with Trent, I was going to give him a 4 at max. But he scored a goal against Ajax and he was much, much better, back to his commanding best, much more forceful, much more physical, remembering that as a centre-back, you have to be physical sometimes. You can't just rely on your talent and reading of the game and just, sometimes you have to get dirty. And I think he hasn't got dirty enough. You know what I mean when I say dirty? Maximum I'd give him is 4.5. And that's because on the back of the Ajax thing, before that, I think he's been trash. Absolute trash, and we're talking about Virgil van Dijk and the standards he set us. So 4.5 from me.
I'll go next, guys. I think 4.5 for me as well. I do think we talk about Trent. He has done a bit more, especially the Ajax performance, and but I think those penalties, the Fulham penalty, the penalty against Napoli. Say what you want, right? What's he doing? Like, that's bad decision making from me. I just don't think he's been at it. And I do think, obviously, his standards are set so high. But unfortunately, that's the way football works. If you set that standard and you're not performing at it. And listen, I think he'll be fine. I think he'll come back. I'm not in this, Van Dijk's done rubbish. Not at all. But we've got to judge what we see. And I'd agree 4.5 for VVD.
Jamie?
I feel like personally, I've seen what Liverpool has been without Van Dijk, and I've seen what Liverpool has been with Van Dijk pre-ACL injury. And so with that being the case, I think a 6 is fair in order due to, obviously, we're not in the greatest of positions. We've not had the amazing defense that we're known for, but take out the Napoli game, I don't think we're Swiss cheese in the back. So I'll give Virgil a 6.
Where are we working that out? So we got 2 6.
5. He's a 5 based on the scores, mate.
5, yeah?
Yeah. All I'd say, guys, just as a final point on that is we've lambasted the midfield all season, and having no midfield has an effect on the back four. So he's been overrun at times, but it's fine. You'll score. I respect his scores, no issue.
Joel Matip. Jamie?
I mean, he's filled me with confidence every time I've seen him play this season, which hasn't been many times. So, I mean, obviously with the Ajax result in my head, but also knowing, in my personal opinion, that Virgil van Dijk plays his best football with Joel Matip, I'd have to say a 7 for Joel Matip.
Conroy? I'm agreeing with that as well, by the way, guys. 7. Yeah. I think Joel Matip's been fine.
I mean, I think it's fair to say, I think we're forgetting, though, he makes a mistake against Fulham on opening day, which leads to the penalty, gives the ball away, at a poor time in the game for us. He makes a mistake. He just comes on against Napoli. And I'm not being too harsh there on him, but I'm just trying to be fair here because we're talking about other mistakes by other individuals and putting their mark down. And I think because of that, still think he's been brilliant, but I don't think he's a 7 because of those 2 mistakes. And I know it's a shorter sample size. So I'd say 6.5 for me, for Joe Matip.
I think Steve was indicating 7 as well, was you?
Yeah, I'm not going to dig him out for the Napoli goal. There's too much distance between the centre-backs and no way a centre midfielder should have that amount of time to split your back four. There's no pressure in the midfield in the Napoli game for 90 minutes. So I agree with the Fulham one. He could do better. I can't dig him out for Napoli. So look what happens when he comes back into the side. At the same time, he comes back into the side with Thiago, who we'll get onto. The difference is insurmountable. The confidence in the back four goes through the roof. It's just the difference between him and Joe Gomez towards the end of Joe Gomez running the side was night and day. So for me, I think 7 is a justifiable score.
Fabinho, I'll
You
go first.
Chris. You go first.
Yeah, I'll go first. 3. Being the worst player in the team. Next.
Jamie, you want to go next? 'Cause I think it's your turn to go next.
I mean, for me, 5 is bad based on what I was saying before. And so I think we have to give credit to the idea that Fabinho's job is made infinitely more difficult depending on the players and the caliber of players that he has in front of them. And so with Thiago being out, Henderson being out, I don't think he's gotten the best out of himself based on who he's been working with. So a 5.
Conroy.
For Fabinho, I do think I take the point as well about what the midfield's been like as well, but I do think he's just been off it in certain games. So I'd go for a similar to what I judged Van Dijk. I would say 4.5 for Fabinho for me.
Steve.
I've been an advocate of Jamie's point. I've said it 3 or 4 times that a 6 is only as good as the guys playing alongside and in front of him, and he's been hung out to dry. He hasn't helped himself, but he's been hung out to dry on 2 or 3 of those games. So I would give him a 5, which, when you add all the scores up, puts him on the same score as Trent.
5?
4. That's the total.
4. Oh.
By the way, I will give Matip a 7. I know it doesn't change anything, but I forgot about the Ajax goal. That's really someone in the chat said. So yeah, it would be a 7. It doesn't really matter, but just to clarify.
Conroy, or is it Jamie? Jordan
Conroy.
Henderson. Conroy.
This one, I think 4.5 again from me. 4.5 or 5. No, maybe go for 5. I'll go for 5. I think he has had games where he's just not been good with the ball, not been what we needed. He's tried to get a team going, but I think I've changed that 4.5. I just don't think he's had a particularly good start, but he has been injured as well, so it's like it's a smaller sample size. I know there's always a narrative with Henderson as well, either one way or the other, but I'd say 4.5. This was the one I actually struggled to remember because he's obviously been out for a few months, for a month.
I'm with you, Conroy. I'll quickly get my one out of the way. I'm with you, 4.5 at max. Yeah, he's been just better than Fabinho. That's the way I'm basing it on. Just better. But that's not saying much. Yeah, again, whether he's been carrying an injury or whatever, he's just been way below par. Way below par. Jamie or Steve?
I would always want to give this guy a 7.5 or an 8, and over his Liverpool career, he's warranted that on numerous occasions. I can't really give him much more than a 5. He hasn't been there. There was one game he came on as a second-half substitute, and he made a massive difference in the structure of the side. So I would give him a 5. I'm not in the realms of scoring people 3, 3.5, or 4. So if you're bad, you're a 5 for me.
We've established that we've got Jamie and Steve who've had a total different rating criteria to me, but it's made interesting viewing, which is the whole point. It's absolutely fine, guys. Jamie, yours.
I feel like
there you go. Bang on cue. I don't think the panel ratings players on the same perimeters. How amazing was that comment? Bang on cue. I read the comment, I read the chat, I read the minds. That's what I do, people, for a living.
You know, for Henderson, I think about him as someone who can set the tempo and counteract the tempo. And this is really difficult when you don't get a run of games, and he's picked up injuries, and we're only a quarter of the season through. But in the games that I've seen him play, I haven't seen him set the tempo in the way that I know he can, even at the age that he's at. And so I can't give him higher than a 5.
Where's he ending up, Steve?
What did you give him?
I gave him 4.5.
And Conroy, you give him the same, yeah?
Yeah.
So he scored 19, so that's closer to 20 than it is 15, so we'd have to go with a 5.
Weren't we saying if 2
Got
gives
19,
4.5?
got 19 in total. 4.5 would be 18, so he's closer to 5 than he is to 4.5.
Wow.
It's a bit of a science.
James Milner. Jamie.
Because he's not been used for what he should have been used for, I know that has to add into the context. But with what we've seen, it has not been of the level that Liverpool Football Club, a club that was competing on 4 competitions last year and would like to replicate that type of ambition this year, he's got to be a 4.5.
Conroy.
Yeah. It is funny though. We do forget the first 2 games. People are saying James Milner was the second best player, like along with Harvey Elliott. I think the first 2-3 games, including the City game. But I tend to agree. I feel like, do you know what? I don't actually blame him a lot of the time. I think we'd all maybe agree with that. He's been put in a situations at times where Keith always vindicates for this. Advocates. He says he signed a deal to get less money, and he's playing more football. For me, it's the final 15 minutes, final 25 minutes. Plays in the League Cup, but. And I do actually have sympathy for him, but for me, I'd agree with Jamie. I think 4.5 for Milner this season so far.
I'd say 4 on the basis of people forget he was a better player in the first couple of games. Yep. He literally was. People have forgotten that, short memories and all that. Yep. Of course, since then, his legs have gone like they're supposed to go for a 40-year-old, give or take a couple of years. 4 for me. Steve?
Given his age and what our expectations should be of him and what we should get from him, I don't think he's really dropped below what our expectations are of a 37-year-old who's played 800 games of football. Depends what you want from him. So for me, he's come in. He's been okay. He's another one that suffered massively at Napoli. Got booked in the first 10 minutes, which meant he had to play completely within himself. Has he been worse than Henderson? No, not for me. So I'd give him a 5.
What's that work out?
So it's 2,
5, 2, 4.5. So the 4, that's 17. So that's 4.
Is it not because we've got 2 4.5s? Can I just put it as 4.5? Or
it doesn't make up 4.5's 18, and then he got 17. So.
Yeah, we changed. I think we changed it earlier on as well.
That's fine.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, Conrad. We changed it a little bit. Thiago Alcantara, people. Last, I think. Yeah, I believe last player.
Based on the performances he's given, got injured in the first game, didn't really make an impact, and then comes on and changes everything because of who and what he is. So on the basis that we lauded the impact Matip had on his return, I think you've got to put Thiago at least that. I would have on the strength of one game. Thiago changed everything for Liverpool. So if you're scoring him on one game, he's in 8 because he's only played one game.
I guess I'll go next. People forget how atrocious he was against Fulham. He was atrocious again at Fulham. Again, one of those Virgil van Dijk, Henderson, Fabinho, Salah, and Thiago. I consider them the big dogs of this team. I consider them to minimum put in a 7 out of 10 because those guys are the big dogs. Not one of them was an above a 5 for me. He was actually atrocious. But then, of his course, Ajax completely changed the game. Was a clear 9 for me in the Ajax game. So I don't know what's the average of 3 and 9, I guess. Is there an average of between 3 and 9?
7.
Yeah, 6. I'll give him a 7. I'll give him a 7 just because Thiago Alcantara and, it's my show.
Yeah.
I'll give him a 7.
That's fine. I'll step in next, guys. I'll give him 7.5. I think, again, we mentioned it last week. I think it's frustrating. It's so frustrating. We're so reliant on an unbelievable player, but it is like, you're always... He's
played one game. He played one full game.
Yes, but it does frustrate me, the topic, to be honest. We spoke about it last week. I won't go too much details. But 7.5. I would have been at 8, but the Fulham game, he was poor in that game. Everyone was quite poor in that game. But what a player. We don't have to talk too much. We all already know how good he is. So 7.5 for me.
Jamie?
Yeah, last one to go. I mean, Fulham wasn't too great. Ajax, he was amazing. Would have given him a 9 in the Ajax game, but he had that little step over dummy thing, which just puts it over the edge for me for a 10. So 10 and 7.5 for me for Thiago.
What the hell does that work out?
7.5, guys.
7.5. Where the hell does 7.5 go? Oh, yeah. The highest marker, right? With Diaz.
And Alisson, yeah.
And Alisson,
With Alisson. Jurgen Klopp, guys, feel free. I think we're gonna have loads of disagreements on this one as well, but that's the beauty of it.
Let the chat put in as well. Let us know your thoughts. And
the chat
depends on what your measurements are. Could he have
season so far?
Could he have set the squad up better for the season? Yes, because we know we needed to strengthen. Has he got things wrong tactically? Yes, because the lineup for Everton for me was quite naive. Everything in front of Fabinho was new. You can't do that in a Merseyside derby because you know what you're going to get. So that would have been a case to go with tried and tested. And I thought with the way we went to Napoli and the performance we put in against Napoli would solely sit on his shoulders. For another one with ridiculously high levels. So I'm going to give him a 6.5 because I think as a squad and as a manager, it's not brilliant. But I'm not going to savage him either.
No, you can't give him a low mark because your average score is very high on people, so it'll be totally against the grain. Jamie.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Steve here. I mean, for me, I think about Napoli with the introductions of Matip and Thiago, and if that was a foreshadowing to get them fit for Ajax, where we did win in terms of the league table and the Champions League group, we're in a position where we're okay in the group and we're 5 points or 6 points off City. So I'll give 6.5.
2 6.5s.
I'm agreeing. I'm agreeing with Assad there out of respect.
No, I knew you were gonna do. No, you're not.
No. Do you know what? It is a difficult one because I don't like.
Not for me. Wow, you lot are so struggling with these ratings.
No, I'm not struggling, but I do think I hate when people talk about injuries. You know I do, right? You know I don't like that. But there has been quite a lot of injuries, so I think that's got to come into it slightly. But I think on that basis, the result against Ajax was massive. The win against Newcastle was massive. And he did put the tools in place on the park to make changes to get us to that point. You know, even if they didn't necessarily score, he got us those results. So for me, I'm between a 5 and a 6, Grizz. I'm probably going to say a 6 because there has been a few key results there. But you've got to take in mind United as well away in the Napoli results. So 6 for me, but it's not been a great one, has it?
Guys, I didn't want to end on me having the last rating, and I think he's been our worst performer. Sorry to break it to you guys, my opinion. I think he's been our worst performer. I think everything that was said in the summer was his. He has the command, he has the respect, he has the authority, he has the power, I believe, to have influence over all things Liverpool, especially in terms of recruitment. I believe that. That's just my opinion. I think we knew about the injury situations. I think we knew about the contract situations. I think we had to take all that into consideration. I think our start's been poor. Tactically, I think our start's been poor. Selection-wise, in-game management, I think we were lucky against Newcastle to win. I think he's been our worst performer. He's still my king. He's still turning it around. We will still get back to the top. He's the only man I have ever wanted for Liverpool and will want for Liverpool going forward. But I think he's been our worst performer. I wouldn't rate him more than a 3.5, 4. Don't know how that affects it. Let's say 3.5. So I don't know how that affects the overall rating. 5.5. There you go. 5.5 for Jurgen Klopp. Guys, just very quickly looking back at this, is there anything that stands out compared to the other ratings, how we started off? Is there anything that we want to bring to a debate, a chat?
I think Bobby and Darwin need looking at.
Yeah.
In terms of
Bobby, they're too high, but they should be 5s, not 6s.
I agree with that. Anyone else?
No, I would say Bobby's a 5.5 or a 6. I'd say Darwin's a 5 in retrospect.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
Darwin a 5.
Just because, the Newcastle goal, the Bournemouth game. I know, listen, it was an anomaly, but he was man of the match in that game, wasn't he? So I'd say 5.5 for Bob. Yeah, Bobby.
Is there anything else that anybody wants to? you know, you guys have seen me. Maybe I'm in a bad mood. I'm not. I'm really not. I know what this team's capable of. I know the levels this team aspires to be and reached, including the manager.
Some of the chat aren't happy, but do you know what? This is why it's a good show.
What they're saying? What they're saying?
No, it's mostly Nunez rating.
Well, let's get to the chat. What they're saying. So, you know, what are they saying? I'm not burying the boss. I respect. Yeah, Assad says 3s, 4s, and 5s all over the pitch this season. I think it's a more tactical show. Our fullbacks barely attack and overlap as they used to, making it a lot easier for opposition fullbacks. Now Salah, Diaz, just too wide. Dougie says Robbo's too harsh. Thiago.
That's my burner account.
Nunez rating is criminal. Tell us, is it too high or too low? Nunez 3, Nunez 4. Okay, I guess that gives us the indication. Well, I would give Alisson more. Thiago is a bit high. Yeah, I get it. Hendo should be the lowest. You know, Alisson should be 9. Still early days. I guess this is the best one. Still early days, mostly down to a lack of tactical balance for me. But this is why Pixelate Pigeon, just my personal opinion compared to the others, it's up to them. That's why I rated Jurgen Klopp so low. That's just me. Liverpool's 12th man says basically you've rated the entire team as C or failing. Yeah, I think the barometer started off from a high base from Steve and Jamie because they said they think 5 is good. Was it 5 is good or 5 is poor?
5 is poor. Yeah.
5 is poor. Yeah, I thought 5 is average.
Yeah, not done anything wrong, not done anything right. Just kind of let you in the middle.
Yeah. You know,
so I struggle with Fabinho's rating because I just can't. His performances are as much to do with what goes on alongside him and in front of him as he can do by himself. You can't if you break the wall down on a dam, one man with something to stop the flow, it doesn't work.
Can I do a counter argument to that?
Sure, yeah.
If I may, sir.
Oh, sure.
2 people have also been part of roles on the pitch that you could put down to not having the personnel around them. And those 2 people that I want to put forward as a counter to Fabinho, you saying Fabinho is only as good as the people around him, is Thiago Alcantara himself and Joel Matip, who have had the impact that I expected Fabinho to have as well, to raise the people around him. He's done the opposite. He hasn't raised the others around him. In fact, he's gone into his own shell. That's just my opinion. I think Fabinho himself can do much more. I absolutely accept and understand and respect your opinion about he's covering 3-4, but when he's been on the ball, I think he's been so lethargic. His own personal duels, I think he's lost pretty much every single duel. That's not down to anyone else.
So let me ask you a question. Would you say Ajax was one of his better performances? Because I would.
Much better.
Right,
but not.
That's because he had Thiago alongside him, and he had a defence behind him at Matip in terms of knowing when to step out, when to play an offside trap and do it properly. Do you notice against Napoli? No, there was no third man. Ajax, there was no third man running because they couldn't get in behind us because everything changed because we brought in a body next to Thiago to almost make it a double next to Fabinho in Thiago to almost make it a double pivot. That actually supports my argument.
I agree that his performance was better. I also agree that there was less third man running, but I put that down to Jurgen Klopp's improvement in that game in terms of how he set up us tactically. I don't think it was Fabinho's personal performance that was outstanding. I'm talking about, so for example, his duel, when he's up against an attacker or midfielder, it's not about James Milner and Harvey Elliott. He has to win that duel. When he's got the ball at his feet, he needs to pass that ball quicker. It's not others. That's just my gripe with him. I think he's way below his standard and his levels. But feel free to, anyone else feel free to jump in if you feel may, or, you know, I don't know. Fabinho, for me, are you saying he should be higher? Oh, sorry, Steve's saying higher.
Listen, we're talking about Joe Gomez and Darwin Nunez being a 5. And we've got.
I don't agree with that.
We've got Fabinho as
well. Yeah, but because we had an agreement on 4 of us, I don't agree with I don't agree with none of those 5s actually. I think Darwin Nunez is about 4.5. I definitely don't agree with Bobby's, but it's a consensus. I have to go with the consensus.
I'd probably say, you could maybe say Nunez and Gomez could drop to 4.5. And that would balance it a bit more.
Who's this character under Henderson under Klopp?
What is it?
Yeah, Henderson under Klopp. I don't think Nunez is warranted of, but again, I think, shall we just leave it?
Well, just on the Fabinho thing, just to add, I think we've had quite a large sample size with Fabinho this season. And Steve, guys, I take both your points in. The thing with me is, I sometimes think you can see when a player's like, just from my opinion, when I've watched him, if he's playing bad or because the way the team is, he's doing okay, but he's just struggling a bit, But there's just times where I think there's so many times I've went, what's he doing there? He looks off it. For me, just when I'm watching him, that's why I feel that he has been off it. Because I think you can have games where, like, yes, Milner, Elliott is leaving him exposed, but he's still decision-making at times, the way he's trying to... This guy was up there with Rodri last year. Now there's a massive gap where you wouldn't even consider him in the top 5 DMs in the world right now. So it's like, for that to have happened, there is a dip in form, and I think it's been apparent. So I see both arguments, but I still think there's been a big sample size to see that he's not been at it for me. And we've been judging other players by their standards, Grizz, and Fabinho's up there as one of the best DMs in the world. And look at the way he's playing now. I get what you're saying, Steve, but I just think, for me, I think he's just been...
The decisions he makes are based on the fact that he's not comfortable with what's going on around him. So if you've got no support left and no support right, you tend to change your starting position. And you tend to find yourself in areas you don't want to be in, trying to win the ball back, because that's not what he should be doing. If I was to say to you, if there's a football pitch on the screen and you could get a light pen and draw where you think the 6 should be, then you went and watched Fabinho's heat map for the first 7 games of the season, you'd say, well, he's never been where I wanted him to be, because he's trying to cover what's going on in front of him. You look up as a 6 of what's going on in front of you, and it's unrecognisable, because for a long time, he had Wijnaldum next to him on the left and Henderson next to him on the right. And there were 3 guys right through the middle, and that was unbreakable. Then that changed, and we brought in Thiago, and him and Thiago formed a really good double pivot in the season. We finished 3rd, getting 28 out of 30 points because that double pivot really worked. And then we took the double pivot away, and we said to him, right, there you go. And now you're going to play with, in the derby, you're going to play with Carvalho, and you're going to play with Elliott, and Everton are going to put 5 in midfield. So straight away, and I've played football at a reasonable level, and I've coached at a reasonable level, and I have an insight into saying, when that happens and you look at it and you think, what the hell do I do now? Because this is like, I'm just being overrun.
And that's why I was shocked that you gave Jurgen Klopp a 6.5, for the very reasons that you've just said. An absolute mismatch of tactics from game to game. And if you're going to do that, it's going to affect your senior players, then it's even a poorer performance from your coach and analytics team. If you have not got a grasp of what your players' strengths and weaknesses are in season 5 and 6 of both Fabinho and Jurgen Klopp, I can't mark them highly. I'm sorry. I just can't. One of them's got to get a low mark. So if you're saying Fabinho gets a higher mark and Jurgen Klopp gets a higher mark, then it's contradictory, in my opinion.
Yeah,
on the back of what you've just said.
And I said in my piece on Klopp that when the team came out for Everton and we were all in our WhatsApp group talking about it, I thought, wow, that's really brave, really brave. Now, as the days go by and I think about it, the weeks go by, I don't understand it, because Everton were never going to be a side that would surrender space in the midfield to get 2 young ball players on the ball. They were just going to be a 4 and a 5, and you break us down. And this is the reason why Mo Salah's heat map for his first 6 games of the season has people saying, is he playing wide? No, he's not. That's the only place that we could put him to get an out ball, which was a long ball, bypasses the midfield, because Everton shut up shop and Carvalho and Elliott couldn't get in the game. And that is on Klopp, which is why I gave him a 6.5 instead of his normal 8.5.
Jurgen Klopp also, may I remind you guys, dropped Fabinho against Man United away. Dropped. Because he was in no position to rest him or rotate him, because we had no options. Either that's because of Fabinho's poor form, guys, or it's a tactical error from Jurgen Klopp. Either way, one of them gets downgraded if you want to upgrade the other one because of the lack of...
Well, he didn't play Fabinho in either game against United last season, and we won 9-0, and he was available for both games on aggregate. So it was a tactical decision to put Henderson in the 6 because it worked so well last season. But then what he didn't bank on was Man United turned up with the midfield this time, and they didn't before.
I think it's more down to you look at your options for that season, for that game. If you think on a big pitch, James Milner and Elliott alongside Henderson is your best option,
No, not necessarily.
big massive pitch.
Threadbare, mate, threadbare. And we know that Fabinho was suffering. And as a result of all of the things, I'm not discounting anything you've said. His decision making was poor. He didn't get the ball out of his feet and move it. But then we have a captain who is brilliant at organising, brilliant at being a leader, has 5 touches before he passes the ball. Henderson is probably the most culpable player for shutting down your options because of all the touches he wants on the ball. So I understand. Listen, I get it. I just can't. I can't have a guy that's been hung out to dry sitting there on 4. For me, I can't do that. But
let's have a look. Is it the only one? Hold on. No, he's got a few next to him. Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know. Jamie Conroy, speak now or forever. Keep your silence because we're about to wrap it up.
No, listen. I just think there's arguments for both. I mean, maybe I find it very difficult when you see like the standards Fabinho set and what we're looking at now. And I get the factors for it, but I still think, in general, the way the decision making should still be better, even when exposed. I can accept that. I just think that's not at the level. Maybe we've overhyped him when he was that good. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe he was that good in that team, and maybe there's just other players at a different level. But I think he will get back to his best. But I just think I've seen enough of him this season to feel that mark's maybe fair. Maybe a 5. I'd be happy with that. But either way, there's either the manager, one of them's one. Either way, it's not good enough, you know.
Guys, I'm gonna leave on this. Where's it gone now? God, where's it gone? Anyway, the one that said we're all 10s. That's the main thing. Because we are.
First time I call it 10 in my life. Thanks very much. Cheers for that.
There you go, son. I've been called Fly tonight anyway from Steve, so my night was complete. Yeah, my night was complete from the very, very start. Jamie, thank you very much. You've been wonderful as always. Thank you very much for coming on. Conroy, Steve, we catch up and we carry on these arguments in the WhatsApp group.
Debates, not arguments. It's a very
but friends argue. This is what we're about. Debates, chats. We're allowed to do it. But was there any disrespect shown? Was there any sign of any disrespect? No,
wait to hear our voice notes in the chat.
Exactly.
Very respectful, guys. Still very respectful.
Exactly, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is your last RedFellas in the international week. We will have games to talk about. We will have real football to talk about. We won't have to argue about ranking Fabinho and Jurgen Klopp and Bobby Firmino. We will have non-stop action for the next, how long, guys? Up to the World Cup. It's an absolute mental. This is what I meant by the calm before the storm, because now we're entering a storm and Liverpool have to come out of this storm safe and sound. I truly believe they will. Thank you very much. Sorry, Steve.
What's at the end of the storm, boys?
Exactly. So this is what we are aspiring towards for. You've been a wonderful audience. You've been a wonderful panel. I've been an okay host. We out of here. Take very good care.